whole class, and they came in the White House, and the president came down, I believe, and spent some time with them. And just like last year, at the end of the year, some of the other things were, there was a lot of stuff going on at the same time in foreign policy. They said you didn't want to go into, but I have extensive notes over this period of time.
You actually have those here.
Yeah, now there's a lot of other notes too, but I mean, this is they didn't even know I have this. Because some of the stuff I'm not, going. So I go back, I mean, I have stuff on, 5. Here we go. I mean, it's like.
So that
I have stuff on all the way up to 5/19.
So that would be
May
like
19th. Then it skips in my notes to, this is 15. Um, 616 is the next entry.
What I'd like to do, maybe on the next visit, is maybe, go through that particular foreign policy stuff, because it strikes me that there were three big things going on, I think. I mean, there were a lot of things, but I think Iraq, Central America, and the Ukraine seem to be the things that were chewing up a lot of your time.
Yeah, because here's February 13th. February 11th situation. I think we can get a POTUS at lunch. I think we can get a deal. Turn that off a second.
Oh, yeah.
What their national strategy was, and we talked about a number of things from Mosul Dam to Syria. But then on the 2nd, I was supposed to call, it was Kevin McCarthy. I was supposed to get in touch with him because this is after the 14th election and he won, they won.
Right.
And I wanted to talk to him about how we proceed.
It looked like he was going to be speaker at that, or
Well, no,
not
we
speaker.
thought he was going to be the number 2 guy, which
Right.
he was.
Yeah.
But he wanted to talk to me about what we could get done, where could we cooperate. And he came over to the house. Then there was a Bono event that was supposed to come up in New York that he wanted me to speak at, but he had that bicycle accident. And remember, he was badly injured,
Yeah.
Bono. And so it got put off. And then I was working on energy infrastructure with the Department of Defense as well as with the Department of Energy, because we were putting together a program where how he needed me to spearhead with him a major initiative on rebuilding the energy infrastructure because it was so vulnerable. Because a lot of it was along the shoreline. A lot of it was, we talked about there were several $1 billion worth of outages a year that cost consumers a lot, and how we could be, our grid could be vulnerable to being shut down.
Right.
Not by cyber, but by natural disaster.
Right. Hurricane.
Hurricanes
Right.
and Sandy type storms.
Right. Was there any discussion of, does he ever talk about decentralizing, uncoupling from that grid and having small...
Yeah, he talks about basically a new grid. What he talks about is, for example, he points out that there are, I don't have the numbers, it's easy to find out, several 100,000 miles of gas pipeline, most of it laid in the 50s, a lot of it leaking. Talks about what a clear and present danger is, particularly in New England. Talks about some of our water infrastructure being wooden pipes. There are still
wooden pipes.
Wood. Talks about how There's methane leaking from some of these pipes and the number of jobs we create. We could get all this information easily enough. And I ended up going up, I can't remember when, going up to Philadelphia to talk to the PE&G about all the stuff that they could and should be doing to significantly increase the safety of the system and how many hundreds of thousands of jobs it would create, etc. And so I was the guy who was going to lead that effort for him, which we started to do. And
I got the sense that the Secretary of Energy is a guy who was pretty optimistic about like just what was going on with energy.
Yeah,
policy.
and he talked about the great chances, and he thinks that I'm the only one who really understands it, and he needed me to be the face of this effort, which for the better part of that year that I was. We also talked about, at that same thing, we talked about vets projects that had to take place, had to be to deal with the plight of veterans. I talked about Congressman Tim Murphy of Connecticut. He had a bill to focus on mental health. Hello? No, she's not here yet. Let's wait till she gets here, okay? And so I talked about that and gun safety and mental health. That was the connection.
He was in
Connecticut.
so near Newtown.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. I don't think he represents Newtown, but near.
Okay.
And then I talked with the National Security Advisor, Susan, about following up with Brazil and Dilma, which I was getting back on track. I was working her really hard.
You had been there New Year's, right? To Brazil?
Yeah. Remember though, I was the one who rebuilt the relationship with her.
Right, after the
WikiLeaks stuff and all that. And so I spent a lot of time putting that relationship back. Then she gets impeached. But I spent a lot of time, Tony and I, talking about Ukraine and unfolding. And I called Jim Inhofe, talking about energy infrastructure. He's from Oklahoma, and talk about why this could work for both the energy producing guys as well as environmental guys to get funding for digging up the bad pipe, connectors and all that. And then the Delaware River project was all about deepening the Delaware River, the Corps of Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
I was fighting to get money for that, so I called Carper, Coons, Carney, Senator Casey, and Bob Brady, Congressman.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to call Elliot Engel on the Foreign Relations Committee, who was fighting the Iran deal, to try to rein him in, which I was able to do. And I had to talk about Carper supporting the Iran deal and help we got. Plus, Carper was very engaged in helping me get funding for Central America and the Northern Triangle. So I talked to him about that.
Was this all literally in that one day?
Yeah.
My God.
And And then we had a very brief staff discussion about, I called President Anastasiadis of Cyprus because they inquired about his health. I think he was still in the hospital here in New York. He came to an operation. And I talked about the University of Delaware Biden Center, and what my Senate legacy was going to be as it related to Delaware.
That was already happening.
That was, well, it was an early discussion. I think it was already happening. And then with the non-classified part of what part of my discussion with POTUS that day was talking about Ready for Joe. I told him about he told me about this, there's bumper stickers and people beginning spontaneously
And he had seen those?
He had raised them. I don't know if he saw them or not, but he knew there was a spontaneous effort to try to draft Joe Biden. And then POTUS was talking about you got to avoid the. I can't remember what he meant by it. Avoid the Mitt Romney, John Kerry situation, which is where they got. I assume he means they got pulled in to start earlier than they were supposed to. And he said, his comment to me was, "I'm very protective of your legacy and your image. Before you do anything in responding to this effort to get you in, why don't you wait till you get." I told him that Mike Donald was doing memos for me as to how to run if I ran. And he said, then decide, because you can always change your mind, in 3 minutes here. You don't have to go on this. But why don't you wait till you get more hard-ass read about your chances? And he said, you ought to talk to Pluff, Seamus, and me. He said, I'll be blunt with you, and so are they. Will tell you the truth based on what the numbers are. And he said that after that, if in a week, after that, within a week, that we have this discussion with you, me, Seamus, etc., then you can decide or not decide whether or not you should let Ready for Joe go. I told him about great rollout. What was I talking about there? I guess it must have been talking about the rollout of the State of the Union.
Would this be sort of maybe like the the agenda going forward in the next 2 years?
He wonders how. I guess he was wondering how the Republicans are going to get out of the cuts on in the border and Coast Guard, how they're going to explain that. What are Republicans going to do? He talked about the hypocrisy. We both talked about the hypocrisy of the prayer breakfast, because we had talked about that earlier. That was either just happened or was about to happen. He told me what he's going to do, or what his plans are for going to do the last year. He wants to help the poor. He said, I don't know, these guys read the same Bible. I don't know what Bible they're reading. I don't know what Bible these guys are reading. We talked about the Central America strategy. He really liked my op-ed that I did on Central America. He said in this situation we have to detail how you're going to lay out. This is the Northern Triangle. I told him of the tentative plan for me to visit the Triangle before heading to Panama. Ash's confirmation. Ash Carter's confirmation. We talked about that, I guess, for a minute.
So can I ask you two things about that lunch? One is that when he said, I'm very protective of your legacy and your image.
He was worried that I would get into, I think it was all about him trying to talk me not running.
Yeah.
And he was worried that if I got started with this draft Biden thing, I let it get out of hand, couldn't go anywhere, it would tarnish my image, tarnish my legacy. And so he wanted to make it clear that he was, quote, very protective of my legacy, very protective of my image. And so wait until you have more data. Wait to see if you can really win this thing. Don't get caught up in, this idea of everybody wanting to draft you, and just make sure it's something that you can actually get done. Is it doable? And the fact is that he didn't think it was doable at that time, that I could actually go out and get the nomination.
Was that your read at the time, or are you?
That was my read at the time.
Okay.
And he probably at some point said, at a minimum, it would be a really uphill battle.
Right.
And she's already really well organized. And then, a few days later, I have notes from Ron Klain in the meeting. He said, Ron was pushing that you really should decide. You need a group to put together to hold the terrain you have, and you have to develop a narrative as to how I'm going to decide. So the narrative to tell the press, I am thinking about it, but this is my decision process. And you need to explain the decision criteria for people. you don't want to do is you don't want to. Can't remember any. You don't want to go the Marion Cuomo route of constantly.
Hamlet.
Yeah. The Hamlet piece. What you gotta you gotta say, here are the things that I believe in. You gotta make sure that I'm always up and positive. No burning desire to run. This is a personal decision. I won't make it before May or June. This is what we talked about. It's not like I have a burning desire to run. And he said, you got to make it your choice. How I'll make the choice, what will trigger the choice, and when I'll make the choice. He said, my decision to run or not run doesn't have to do with the field. I'm not out testing a message. Remember, she was testing messages. Avoid the whole idea of looking like you're testing. And then next thing I have here is this is classified. It goes to the 17th.
I think we have that pretty well covered in that from the notebooks you had the last few times. Was
Spent a
Ron?
lot of time this month on Ukraine, in Brazil,
So, how did you bring Dilma back in the boat? So
I really wooed her. And I spent a lot of time talking to her. I spent a lot of time convincing her that it was in U.S. interest to have a relationship with them. She used the phrase in a press conference that Vice President Biden is seductive.
I remember
We're not married yet, but he is seductive. I got her to believe that we weren't deliberately, trying to undermine her, and we weren't listening to all her conversations, and that she had to understand that it was bottom line is that she began this. She said, okay, and she wasn't going to come to the United States. I worked out where she would be able to come, and it basically patched everything up between the two. But I just worked her really hard.
Yeah.
Was honest with her, didn't in any way mislead her.
How strongly did she register her anger with you?
Very strongly. And she didn't trust anything America was doing, but you know, I said, you can trust me, I'll level with you. And then I talked with her about, tell me what your greatest political problems are. Maybe you can use me as an excuse to why you have to do what you have to do. I had multiple phone calls with her. Went down and visited her, talked about, how we could work together, how we could help. So it took months, but I really worked the relationship on a personal basis.
Was her visit here sort of the moment when you felt like it was put back together?
Yeah. I mean, that was she had refused to come, and I had talked her into coming, and had the equivalent of a steak dinner, and to show her respect for her, because she was getting living hell beat out of her at home for dealing with us at all, with like cut off relationships, etc.
Didn't you have a personal connection, somebody, like a nephew or something that she had?
No, but I paid a lot of attention to. I'd have to go back, and I'm sure I'd get a lot of material on the Dilma relationship. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I did. I'm sure I can get us a lot on that.
Okay.
And then and I was working the same thing. I was working really hard on Ukraine. As well as the Northern Triangle. I also was meeting with the Qataris and the Middle East about Iraq and Iran.
The body really needed help at this point, didn't it?
Yeah. This was the time when I was making the case to the whole administration that instability coming out of the Arab Spring was not going to go away anytime soon. There was a real lack of opportunity. I argued the state media in the region was hurting us, the Sunni and Shia refusal to adjust, and
Was there any one of those Iraq, the Northern Triangle, Ukraine, and Brazil that really stood apart as, you know, man, we got to get this right, and or is it just you've got to keep all these balls in the air all the time?
It was about trying to manage. I never thought we could do. I thought we could get Brazil right and repair that relationship out of our own interest. But I thought that there was, and all this time we're working on the. We had done the Iran deal, I think, by this time.
It was the framework was being worked on.
Yeah.
I think the framework happened in April.
Yeah, and so I was of the view that you know, all we could do was really manage what was going on. And I was making the case that Nusra was a terrorist organization at the time, and the argument was, were they or weren't they? And I was making the argument they were. And I was talking about we just have to figure out how to manage this. At the same time, I was...
Where was Nusra operating?
In Iran. I mean, excuse me.
In Iraq.
In Syria. And then, at the same time, I was making the case on the phone constantly with Poroshenko about help them against the Russians, because it was the 26th of February. They really were looking for counter radars to defend themselves. They were looking for anti-tank weapons, and they wanted the Global Hawk, which was able to look down capability, and also I was still working on Brazil and a potential state dinner at the same time.
Were you a kind of a lonely voice on Ukraine at this point in the administration?
I've been the lonely voice the whole fucking time. Yes, it was. Making the case. I kept making the case. We pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
We either help them now or it's going to get much, much worse later. And what will happen. Also, during this period, I think this is when Schultz was trying to get me to run. Howard Schultz was calling me. And I got a call from Joe Donnelly that he wanted me to call. There was something about Father Hesper. Did he die?
At Notre Dame?
At Notre Dame on the 27th of February. And I was meeting with Bill Bradley, who was talking about me wanted me to run. And then
And when people like Schultz and Bradley are calling, you can't tell them what's going on in your life.
No, I didn't. So I was thinking about it. And the Central America piece, I was pushing for civil service reform and professionalize the police force. Talking about the need to get in light manufacturing and tourism. Talked about in Honduras about the gas pipeline needs to be completed. The use of military forces for police force had to transition to police power. You had to finish the gas pipeline from Mexico, or you get it underway. But that regulatory changes in the utility industry were needed to get anything done.
Like to get investment in there, they needed to.
Yeah, but they also, in order to get it built, in order to get investment to get it built.
Wasn't there also a mechanism that they had to sign off on, like it was almost a UN policing mechanism?
Yes, I insisted that this was before that. I'm trying to get the time frame. That's what we got to have somebody sit down with me when we do this. The time frame was that thank you. And
that's something I can. That's a matter of public record. That UN thing, I can check.
And then I spoke to the Northern Triangle guys were in town, I think on the 3rd of March. And I talked about an ambitious agenda we have. This is a moment of opportunity. The Millennial Challenge was an example of how we can organize our effort. It had to be transparency. They needed to lobby Congress and mitigate or solve a lot of the problems. There need to be structural changes. It wasn't just about giving the money. We had to, it was required know-how, technical assistance, educational assistance, and bureaucratic, you had to build bureaucracies. And we had to lobby beyond the government. We had the civil society, religious society, the business community, and in detail what they were going to do was absolutely necessary. This must have been, was I down in? I may have been down.
I have March 2, I think you were going to Guatemala City.
Yeah, so I was down. These were compliments. These were comments I made
Okay.
in Guatemala City
Okay.
to the leaders of the Northern Triangle. That was it.
Is there some fun when you're on these trips
No,
down there?
nope, never.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I went to Guatemala, Hernandez, of Honduras, and Sanchez Serene of El Salvador. I met with and leaders, other leaders from the communities. And so that was in where was that? In
March 2nd, I have.
yeah, March 2nd. It was back.
Interesting.
That was on the 3rd too. I met with multinational government organizations. Went to a state visit of model police precinct, and then I hit the Guatemala airport and came home. So
You know what's interesting about that day? It looks like you had a call with a body while you were there.
I'm sure I did. Yeah, yeah. Because I was the guy who, you know, everybody. The only guy Body really trusts is me. The Triangle guys, Dilma,
Ukraine, yeah,
Poroshenko, all those guys. And then remember having a series of debates with the nuclear scientists who helped develop the atom bomb, the hydrogen bomb, Professor Heller.
Mm-hmm.
And so during the debate on arms control, I agreed to do a series of 5 debates with them around the country. And they were really pretty, I should make a note of that because I think that's a memoir book. They were really, really significant debates. And we did one out in California, and they were televised. It was during the Reagan era and Star Wars and, opposition to arms control. And Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb. He was a Hungarian who lived under communism. And the argument he made was that in a nuclear exchange, we would lose, the Russians would lose at least 20 million, up to 35 million people. And we would lose as many as 12 million in the retaliation. And he said, but the Russians will still strike first because they don't care about their people. They'll absorb 20 million to 30, 50 million, 20 to 30 million loss. And because they lost in World War II 20 million people. They don't value life. And because they lost 20 million, they're prepared to lose it again. And I remember saying to him, I don't know what made me do it, I said, you know, Professor, he would never stand next to me when we debated. We'd be on a stage, and there were, there were over 1,000 people every time we debated. And the podium would have to be at opposite ends of the stage. He would not do in the middle. He wanted to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me? And it's interesting. After that Dyer entry, the next one would be between that and the 7th of July
Mm-hmm.
was a long meeting on the Security Council on the part of it was classified between me, General Austin, General Dumford, Sandy Winnefeld, the Admiral, Tony Blinken, the President, Ash Carter, and the argument, as well as John Brennan, the head of the CIA, and our ambassador to the United Nations, and it concludes by saying, I So this was, early on, in '09, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs. I wrote the president a handwritten 40-page memorandum arguing against deploying additional troops to to Afghanistan, on the grounds that it wouldn't matter, that the day we left would be like the day before we arrived.
Was pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I made the same argument relative, for example, it starts off General Austin saying, quote, "I don't know if we can have a unified Iraq. I don't mean we have to decide that now," he was saying. I wrote that piece now 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Need to think about the future of Iraq if just the Kurds are the different. How do we get after the people's original objective that was different than Iraq? Anyway, the point is, I have this fairly profound meeting within, at least within 5 days after that diary entry. Because we're making the decision, what do we do? Do we double down in Iraq? Do we move toward what I argued 5 years earlier, that we should have in Iraq and Afghanistan, we should have a counter-terrorism strategy rather than a counterinsurgency strategy of occupying and changing hearts and minds. I wrote, Brennan's talking about Iraq, and I wrote, John said, that's what Biden said.
What, who was saying? John? You said
John Brennan.
Brennan, CIA, yeah. Yeah.
And the chief of operations, the chief of staff, or the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, quote, "We got to get it about right. Iraq's historic conflict is a historic conflict that will take a long, long time to sort out. We must keep Daesh, or that's what the Arabs call it, ISIS, in perspective.
You know, I think about that hearing you held in the run-up to the Iraq War in probably 2002. I mean, you had people testifying and laid out. This, we're talking about 15 years. You know, everything that's come to pass was there for everybody to see.
Then on the 7th, I had a meeting with Ted, Steve, Mike Donnelly on the 7th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Consensus is it's no longer a question about is the race doable. It is. The question was, when would I need to show my hand to be plausible? Mike thought an exploratory in mid-August was necessary to announce early in mid-September. Thought we could wait for things to play out a little more. Discussed the July 17th candidate event in Iowa, which I was invited to. I said it was too early. Others were less certain. Later, 5:30, with Terry Goodman came by. Told them we were discussing how I should handle my schedule and deal with request race 216. Said, wait, the momentum will come to you. Making a 1968 analogy, Terry said, that was, Kennedy.
Yeah.
And it's, and lots of interest in Iowa, while there is some enthusiasm and there's a question whether there's enthusiasm for Hillary there or anywhere for that matter. We basically left it that because I had to go back to the White House for a reception with Democratic senators, during Q&A, Barack said, the best decision I've made was asking Joe Biden to join me. Several of the senators stood up and gave a standing ovation. He said even then, he'll go down in history as one of the best vice presidents in all of history. He has been with me in every decision I've made, and he's always had my back even when I've been wrong. And I wrote here, generous comment. Then on the 8th of July.
That was on the 7th of July
That was the 7th of July.
Reception happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on the 8th of July, Steve, Mike, and Ted, Mike said, clean announcement, clear announcement, clear assessment of negative attacks from Hillary. State my position on money, exploratory committee in August, polling in August, 30 persons, find a lawyer, a digital director, a press person, let what happens come to you. Ted, not a draft, but there's an opening. JRB, I said, what are the negatives of timing and what will POTUS do? Ron Klain, you lose, a sitting vice president, not like in 2008. No, if you lose as a sitting vice president. It's not like in 08, meaning that, when I lost the nomination, everybody, he said, there's no romantic dignity in losing. Understand that if you lose, it'll be a big loss. There is an end point to mourning, classic Ron Klain, just, like the neurosurgeon. This turns on to think about it. One and only exercise is write your announcement speech now. The theory of your candidacy. I'm running for this reason and I'm willing to lose for this reason. If you can't write a good announcement speech, you shouldn't run. And then on the 10th, Steve, he said there is some momentum. You have to provide your folks for your case versus theirs. They need some reassurance. If it shows promise, go to POTUS and ask for his support. See, best advocate. Strong desire for, this is about the middle class. You are the best advocate. That's what the race is about, the middle class. You're the best advocate. There's a strong desire for the real versus the phony. Intense dysfunction. There's intense dissatisfaction with tying it to money. Like, they kept saying we can't run because of the money. It's candidate performance. Claim to a record. Claim to a record in the party that they're not claiming to. Closest to the president. Be his best defender. Change within a month. People see great strength and resilience in your character. Least appreciated as it's the least appreciated aspect about the president, who's a truly decent guy. You have the ability to be a unifier, a reassuring skill. Hillary is divisive, and Bernie is too angry. You've been brought into focus is the depth of your character, the understanding just how tough life can be, and your connection to those people. Steve, lay out a big, bold picture of what we can do for the country in the future. Mike, Hillary Clinton, incapable of being forthright, tied to Wall Street. Fundamentals. The speech I can give the speech. Advice, what I say. JRB, middle class. Is being out of shape. We're the richest country. The richest people in the country can't buy this election. Nearly 8 years ago, we went to work. We did it together now. The best decision ever made was to join him. Brought the country back. Portion. Unlike George H.W. Bush, suffered factory, but then when he saw him being fished out of the ocean. It was about how to deal with my downside. Remember the ad they had of him being fished out of the ocean when his plane went in the ocean in World War II? That ended the win factor.
Right.
Flip side, they won't give you an inch. They expect you to screw up. You can't raise the money. Comparison to you, Hillary Clinton dynasty. On the left, you though have an 80% rating. An honest assessment of that issue. The gaffe issue is like a virus. It's dormant. When you make a mistake again, they'll bring it up. If you entered, understand the odds. Challenges are great. No one can look around this country as well as you can. It's all this is a matter of principle. It's happening in front of us. It's being bought by people with powerful interests. Just as this party has stood for civil rights, this is where we are. The future of the middle class is at stake. I'm committed to the middle class. They don't believe anymore. Here's what I'm going to do to start. I'm going to start by lowering their taxes and free college education. No one gets to the point in life I've gotten to. Without, I can't read my own writing. Enormous progress President and I have done. I'm not going to stand by and see it undone. And then, anyway.
Well, I think we should call a night.
The next day, I have briefing it. So this had to be another day. The 15th, I had, then the 17th, and then I have 2:30 p.m. meeting with General Austin. This was a big meeting, the CIA and everyone on, it was,
Was that a July meeting?
I don't know, it looks like it is. It says, I changed pens. So it's got to be after the 17th of June. And then it's a long meeting where DOD brief at DOD POTUS, Air Force 2, 2:30 p.m. I may be on Air Force 2 at 2:30 p.m. Don't mean we have to decide that now. Question mark. Need to think about the future of Syria. If just Kurds, different oil, water, and extortion. How do we get after these people? Original objective is different. Those in Iraq and Iran want suppression of Sunnis. Only way to speed it up, we need to accompany JTAC and two soft forces. We are pretty good at penetrating, protecting our soldiers. Tony, last few weeks, fits and starts. It's all about Iraq. And then I have written here, which can't be right. 7/7/15, 3 p.m. NAVOPS, Ray 2016. Oh, it's about running.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. Okay, that threw me off. And then, I remember. So this is between. This meeting occurred between the 17th of June
Okay.
and the 17th and the 7th of July.
Okay.
John of the CIA said,
John Brennan?
John Brennan.
Okay. Sorry, but that's basically
Me.
that's.
Yeah.
But he's
Now,
right.
yeah.
Right. I was just going to check and see if I have in the schedule when that meeting might have been. That's sort of like a.
There was a big meeting down in the Situation Room. It would have been. You're doing that. Give me a second. I can't remember where he made that famous comment, if you don't like Joe Biden, there's something wrong with you or something.
Yeah, he did that in a car interview, while he was running, yes. And this was right, it was right around that time I had that clip. I wonder if you think this might be a moment, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but you spoke very eloquently about this the other day at one of the meetings about how you have to know people across the aisle. If you don't know them and you doubt, you question their motivations. And I wondered if this might be an opportunity to stop and do that thing about Lindsey and sort of widen out and explain.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, when he came to the Senate, he I'm trying to remember how the relationship. In the meantime, what was happening? I got a call from Dilma Rousseff that she wanted me to come to her inauguration, and this is before she imploded. I know we're not going to write a lot about her, but it's a context.
Yeah, you were in St. Croix, right, when you went from?
Yeah, and so. But I got the invitation earlier.
Okay.
And so I had been working like hell to overcome the Snowden stuff.
Right.
And we started to actually make some real comments. If you'll make a note in my book, if you make a note, I will too. When did she use the phrase, we're not married yet, but we're dating? He's
Oh, yeah. Seductive.
We're not
Yeah.
married. It relates to timing.
Okay. I actually have that clip in my laptop.
Okay, well, I'm trying to remember when it was. You know,
Okay, yeah.
So, because it'll sort of give me a point, counterpoint piece of what was going on. So, we were so I'd been working that hard.
I can't believe you made that trip in. I didn't realize till I looked at the schedule. You made that trip in a day. Right.
And
So she made the comment at a dinner just before the World Cup last year. So that would have been in World Cup probably summer
14.
of 2014. So she'd already said that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been working it real hard. And the other thing, I was through the month of November working real hard on had we passed ACA? We had we?
Yeah. That looks like 2013.
Yeah, this is 13. 11014. Okay.
So that's still a year or too early for us.
We're 15. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking here. Well, actually, here's
There's 115.
yeah. Okay, this is November 14. Just get my.
Okay.
I was working a lot with Ukraine and with
Mm-hmm.
on
He was
energy.
the energy guy, right?
Energy. And it was about whether or not they were going to cut off oil, and about how Ukraine had to change their oil subsidy to a market system. Here's what I meant in my card. I still do it.
Oh.
In order to get IMF loans, they had to move more to a market economy because they were way, way off, and had to deal with corruption in the energy sector. So, and they owed Russia about $3.6 billion, in back energy cost.
It was natural gas that Russia's selling into that.
There was some oil too,
Okay.
some coal, but it was mainly gas.
Okay.
And what I was working really hard on was getting other countries to engage in reverse flow of their pipelines so they could flow to Ukraine. And the IMF was the subsidy. They were subsidizing the cost of energy 81%.
This is over and above the loans.
Back up. The Ukrainian government was having Ukrainian people pay so little for the gas they were getting. They were subsidized to the tune of 81%, the people.
Okay.
Not the government, the people. And so, for example, you'd ride through rural parts of Ukraine, and it'd be 12, 15, 20 degrees, and the windows are wide open in their homes, for real. IMF said they had to phase in a government tariff. But the gas deal they had no real European assurances that they'd be part of the deal. And then on the 26th and 14th, we're talking about ISIL increasing pressure on Assad. And I had a discussion with the Turks. General Allen was going to go see. Details not that important.
Okay.
I had Davutoglu, who was then the prime minister, and President Erdogan. I tried to expand on the 8 points. What were the 8 points? I can't remember. And Clapper.
Having been burned by Libya, right? Yeah.
Position is
Okay.
uh,
With,
Yeah.
with the,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. As they started grabbing land, they were grabbing
that was
oil
a big
fields.
argument.
Right.
Did they send the speeches to? All right. What was I going to ask you? Something else. Oh gosh. I can't think what it is. Thanks.
Something number something quality.
Yeah.
I can't.
Some of this may be classified, so be careful with
Okay.
it. I'm not sure. It's not more classified, but.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That date is 11/26/14.
Yeah.
And that's a day you were in Nantucket. So do you get like fed into a situation room meeting?
Yeah.
It's
They set up a secure.
Okay. So actually, in the Thanksgiving trip, you were
By the way, on the 26th, I had a long call with Arseny Yatsenyuk. He told me they'd formed a government. They'd agreed on a new speaker and an agenda. He said, I'm, quote, keeping my commitment to you that you asked me to do on our ride to the airport. Remember I talked about the ride to the airport?
Yeah.
I thanked him for following through.
And that was about
That was
corruption and
that was about no. That was specifically about sticking with Poroshenko
okay,
and not calling for elections and not campaigning separately, campaigning
Okay.
together.
right. So they had formed this essentially
they formed
coalition
it,
government.
yeah.
Okay.
And then on the
And that's the day, and that was also reported the day after that. That's when they announced they were doing away with the old neutral policy and heading toward EU.
yeah, that could
Yeah.
be. That wasn't what I asked him, but that's what.
But
they
that's all.
were doing. And then on the 2nd of December, we had a discussion about Turkey and the Russian pipeline with Hochstein at 11:45. What was going on was the Russians were now they were kind of bribed the Turks with what they call South Stream.
Okay.
That all the oil coming out of Russia would come down through the Caspian and into Turkey and use that as a hub. It would come from the eastern. It would come from Azerbaijan. I almost called the Turkish minister to see if this was the deal, because it would have real impact on whether or not we could get a deal with Cyprus. Cyprus and Israel had found these caches of oil, gas, natural gas. What I was trying to work is an agreement whereby Hochstein and I were trying to work with the Turks to say, okay, why don't you make a deal with Cyprus?
Okay.
Get a unity government there in Cyprus, and the end result will be you'll have access to all that gas. The gas will go to you, you'll be secure, and you'll be a conduit into Greece and the rest of the world. That's what was being discussed. Now,
Was that
Turks-
completely separate from the question of Ukraine's natural
yes,
gas?
completely separate. But they all are tied.
Yeah, because there's one market.
There's one market. And so what happens is, what they're worried about is if Russia, instead of going through Ukraine, came down through Turkey, through Azerbaijan, it would cost the Ukrainians $10 billion a year in lost revenue. Okay?
Okay.
And a secure access to gas. But the Turks had to the Russians had to get their gas east. So they came up with South Stream to go below Ukraine, cut them out.
Right.
And at the same time, that's all energy is fungible. At the same time, what was going on is that Israel had found this new gas supplies in their territory, as had Greece. Now, Turkey was arguing that as did Cyprus. Turkey was arguing that it wasn't Cypriot gas, but under the UN resolution, it is within Cyprus's geographic boundaries and border, and they were threatening to send ships in to block the exploration and the rest. So what I had underway, it looked promising until the Russians came along to try to fuck it up, was to say, look, work out a deal, let the Turks and the Greeks on Cyprus work out a deal, which you end up pulling out off the island over time, a unified government, bi-communal, bi-zonal. They can then cut a deal with you, because they're part of the EU, they can cut a deal with you to get all the gas you want because it's illogical to go up north to supply Europe through Turkey.
Right.
Okay, and so so for the Turks that was like, God, that's great. Ooh, fuck me, you know, we're going to be a major player again.
Right.
We'll have energy,
Right.
and then the Russians come along and say, no. We'll make you the hub.
Uh-huh.
All the Russian gas, instead of going through Ukraine, will come down through you. It was called South Stream.
Okay.
Um,
And the Russian reserves, the Russian gas is much more than what they were going to be able to pull out of Cyprus, likely.
no, not really.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of gas. But there would be plenty from Cyprus. But what it was Russia had no other way to get their gas
Right.
to Europe. So, so call the Turkish administration and say, hey, have you guys made a deal? And they rope-a-doped and said, not yet. They haven't. And I put, then Jordan, if we allowed the deal to go through in the Eastern Mediterranean, that'd be $4.8 billion would go forward with Israel. The meetings went well. This is a case where Jordan is looking to Israel now and saying, hey, look, we need gas, we need oil. And it's really easy to connect a pipeline right through Israel. The cost of that pipeline would be $4.8 billion. And in 2012, the Sinai pipeline to Israel and Jordan was bombed, and it's been out. 10 months there had been, let me see. It's about the timing. The final deal, $14 billion over the next 10 years of offshore Israeli gas. So, and this would also, I remember this. There was a big discussion earlier that there would be oil in the Dead Sea. And so, and Syria was trying to get in the game too. So the question was whether or not this had been an Arab pipeline, whether or not the Israeli gas had gone on an Arab pipeline, which included, here's what we need to do, which included Egypt. So there was an Arab pipeline that had been envisioned. And so what this whole idea was So the Arab pipeline was idea that there was talk of going, instead of the option was that the Greeks would sell the oil, the Cypriots would build a pipeline down to Egypt.
Okay.
And Egypt would go under the Red Sea, tie into existing pipelines, and tie Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt together in what they called the Arab pipeline.
Okay.
And at the same time, this was going on the second. Was I back in the second?
Yeah, back in.
I didn't think they were doing nearly enough, and they should have been able to put in all. We've been through this.
Right.
We know how to handle domestic violence,
Right.
but it's like the universities. They all start like we hadn't learned anything, or we
Right.
hadn't set anything up.
Right. So it's a whole new institution,
A
and
whole
they
new
won't.
institution.
They have
and
to
I argue
fight.
that they should be able to go beyond the command. In other words, the commanding general should be. But I lost that. Then we went back to Brazil, and there was this whole focus, a report by Jack Lew about Brazil's economy. Pritzker had just been down there, and again, you don't want to get into it, but this whole big thing about what was going to happen to Brazil's economy and Brazil's exports. And the basic problems in Brazil: weak education reform through views, TTP, dialogues and working group. We had set up. This was now I have 1/1/15 written for this.
Okay.
This was my brief to going down to and I brought Lou and company with me. To set up a working groups with after her. What I did was I argued that we should, before her inauguration and after we did meet, we should set up working groups on the economy and education, a whole range of other things. And so Pritzker was with me, so was Jack Lew. And we talked about why we should become better trade partners. We talked about macroeconomic policy to discuss structural and financial sector measures, trade and investment, etc. And so Pritzker set up a U.S.-Brazil CEO forum, talking about TPP and TTIP, and work beyond Mercosur, MERCOSUR. That is the economic That's like the EU for Southern. We talked about commercial relationships, and we talked about foreign direct investment and all these issues, education. And then we set up dialogues in a working group on the economy and commercial relations with the Secretary of Treasury, science and technology innovation with the Secretary of Energy, bilateral and regional and global issues with the Secretary of State, defense and security with the Secretary of Defense, people to people with the State Department, public diplomacy and other exchanges. And then we discussed they wanted to become part of TPP. Remaining focus is for them to become part of it, they had to deal with international intellectual property, environment, state-owned enterprises, and investment and financial services. Bilaterally, they want to talk about market access and between us and agricultural in terms of government procurement. The next round would be in the U.S. on the 26th to the 1st of February, 26th of January. The final ministerial meeting for us to decide whether they could be part of TP was going to be March 6th to 8th with Japan. They were hardening their position on automobiles, and we're prepared to spend a new proposal on autos. Brazil, one of the most protective markets in the world, high tariffs, complex tax system, regulatory regime, reliance on localization measures mean you got to buy and sell local in the market, industrial policy, etc. And I went through all the problems. Objective was restart all the dialogues, including the CEO dialogue and the presidential dialogues and the CEO dialogue. Reason she is meeting with me and doing this, it helps her politics with the business community, and until now, their deliverable was her just showing up. The lingering issues were the defense cooperation agreement, more interaction between our militaries, General Secretary of the Military Information Agreement, shared technical classified information, open skies for civil aviation and peaceful use of space. They're all being discussed. Now on the 6th, I'm opening up the Mexico. Where am I on the 6th? This is really a busy time. Okay, this one opened up the Mexico high-level dialogue. Met with Peña Nieto. This is in Washington. And I broke off at 11:45 because I had to swear in the new Senate on the 6th. And then I also, that day, I went to, it was a big deal to him, I went to the unveiling of the portrait of Representative Conyers in the, so that's what I did. The next day, the thing I did a whole lot, but it was basically there was a principals committee meeting the SEC, but I swore in Mark Gilbert, who had been helpful in our campaigns, ambassador to Australia. To New Zealand. And I did some other swearing-ins. The next day, now, this was new Congress, and I was also the point man with the Congress. So Kevin McCarthy wanted to meet with me privately, and we did that afternoon. I believe we got at the Naval Observatory. And then I dropped by later that night at the UFCW commercial workers, food and commercial workers, Joe Hansen. I dropped by a reception they had. And again now, the next day, I went down to San Antonio. I went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and Clinton, Tennessee, and San Antonio, Texas. And what was I doing? I spoke at a community college to 450 people in Pillissippi State Community College. Then
That wasn't the Techmer trip, was it?
it may have been Wheels Up. I then was went to San Diego from 6:40 to 7:40, remarks at the Student Veterans of America Convention. I spoke. So again, back to the large picture. During this period, I was doing a lot of stuff on Mexico, and with the high-level dialogues, and trying to work out energy and connectivity. And then,
can we back up for a second
Yeah.
to the 5th of January? And can we spend some time on that? Yeah.
I had all those presidential notes.
I know you gave me this much from the
Actually,
separate from presidential.
I wonder where those.
Do you have separate notebooks of the?
Yeah. After every lunch, I would dictate to. I'd call in, and I'd dictate to her what the lunch was about. I think you called her. I had all those at the house in a safe. I don't know what they made me do with them. What I'd do, I'd make up a card, one of those little cards of mine. Before I'd have lunch, I'd meet with Steve and anything anybody thought I should be bringing up on our agenda. And then I'd come back and I'd dictate notes to as to what actually transpired at the lunch. So this is, I must have met with Klain
only thing I saw possible that day was the maybe the early morning at Navob's or something.
Oh, did I? On the 4th, at 2 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
I think I went to So I think I went to that memorial service in Wilmington. It says December the 4th, but I don't know what this means. Memorial service gets names really fucked up. So it says memorial service for, I don't think her name was, I forget. So I gotta make a note of that too. But at any rate, back to, I had a meeting with Ron Klain, and I don't know when. During this period, remember, we talked about it earlier, we're focusing on what we're doing substantively, but during this period, there was a lot of discussion and mounting pressure from my own team that I announced.
Right.
And that I couldn't delay it much longer. And Ron Klain was making the case how I would run, because I was arguing that, and it was true, that there was disappointment on the part of Democrats in Barack's not being more aggressive about
Right.
a lot of things. And Hillary was criticizing him, she was out by now, and others were criticizing him. And this is where this came in. Ron's advice was that I should actually do a speech to put all of them on, he said, scatter tacks in their path,
Mm-hmm.
by talking about what we've done, be much more aggressive about while they're talking about how much they changed their approach to the economy from Obama, he said, here's why they're wrong. He said the speech topic suggests, he said, aggressively defend the president, throw thumbtacks in their path, frame the box for the others who are running, one they can't get out of. This will allow me to define the middle class, so challenge without naming Hillary or others,
Right.
and it will challenge the Democratic critics of Hillary, critics including Hillary. In other words, make the case for Obama. Look, make the case that basically says, I'll take the blame for every mistake we made as long as you give me all the credit too. And we did a great job, challenged Democratic critics, including Hillary. The other piece of that was, we had decided, and Mike's idea was, and Ron was still loyal in those days, was to say, because he came in to see me and I took extensive notes, I don't know where the hell they are, Mike's idea was, look, this is what we've done, and I'm proud of it. And I'll take credit for it if you bet. I'll take blame and credit. But this is what I'm going to do from here.
Right.
Instead of going after what we didn't do.
Right.
And what they were doing. The others saying, well, you know, if I were Barack, I would have done more in the economy. Well, I was a really lonely voice on housing. I was a lonely voice on the middle class. I mean, I thought we should be much more aggressive in putting these guys in jail and the bankers. I mean, for real. It wasn't idle. I mean, he used to really get pissed at me. And I stopped doing it.
Barack used to get pissed.
Oh yeah, really pissed.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason he didn't do it was I think he does buy this argument of the moral hazard. You know, like you went out and took a risk.
Right.
I remember getting a briefing from his economic team saying to me that, well, I didn't understand, this is not the middle class of post-World War II. These are all greedy bastards. They all went out and borrowed money on these crazy cockamamie loans because they wanted a fifth bedroom, they wanted a swimming pool, they wanted a place at the beach. Bullshit. You know, that's what the new middle class was. And they're part of it, the millennials. That's what they. Anyway, that was the constant fight with me. Klain was on my side when he was there. And my whole team was all. I had the team that said, including the two guys who I think were with me were, oh God, the guy at Princeton now, the economist, good guy, was our chief economic advisor, not Kaufman, think of his name, and the guy back out at the University of Chicago with a funny name, I'll think of it.
Goolsby is one.
Goolsby.
Yeah, Goolsby is in Chicago.
And the other guy's at Princeton.
Yeah.
We should write the names down so I don't keep forgetting.
Is it Alan Kruger?
Alan Kruger, great guy, by the way. And a big fan, a big supporter. So, so we were on the same team along with, my team, my internal staff. But it was constant. I think the reason why we didn't do more, by the way, is because I think that, it's a harsh thing to say, but I think subconsciously at least, Barack and his guys were beholden to Silicon Valley.
Right.
And the Valley guys didn't want this shit that I wanted to,
They want free
And-
reign out there.
Yeah, and the other thing was that there was the guy who was a big Barack supporter early on is Jamie Dimon.
Yeah.
And Jamie Dimon was, he's probably the people who should have gone to jail. But,
Well, Jamie Dimon is the architect of the Clinton, let's end
yeah,
Glass-Steagall.
yeah.
He's the whole
Yeah,
ballgame.
right.
Yeah.
And so there was Jamie Dimon.
And he was always part of that team, right, of advisors, the
Yeah.
outside advisors
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Barack had. Yeah.
And so, even though we weren't, quote, tied to Wall Street bankers, we were pretty well tied to Wall Street bankers.
Right. Right.
So,
And Summers was always.
and Summers came to me, said he was wrong after
Really?
we got, yeah. Came to me and says, I was wrong about the housing piece. I should have been much more aggressive. We should have given more leeway. We should have, which was really something else. And when he came to me, and I'll get the date, remind me, when did Summers come to me to have lunch with you? It was when I was thinking about running.
Okay. Because Summers is not a guy who's known for
No,
admitting to
no.
mistakes.
No.
Well, it is that also the.
Here's what happened, before I forget, don't mind my train of thought. He also pledged to support me in 2016.
Summers did.
Yeah. Now, part of the reason for that was Barack had promised him the Fed, and I thought he should have appointed him to the Fed. And Barack backed off the agreement, backed off that promise, Larry. And it really, really pissed Larry off. He was going to be appointed to the Fed.
Because Larry was too much of a
liability.
Yeah.
And it was, Harvard and women, and
yeah.
but it was he just didn't. Any rate, so the context. No, tell them another 10 minutes. Okay. Tell them 15 minutes, so I'll have a chance to read. Tell them I'm in meetings, okay, still? Anyway, so the issue was, this is all, all this is happened simultaneously. The issue was about running for president, which is still very present in everything we were doing, it was that how would I handle the fact that I disagreed with him?
Right.
Well, and Ron he's very good. I'm so disappointed he was so disloyal. That was really hurt my feelings. It disappointed me about him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's happy.
Yeah.
I know he knows better.
Right.
I know he, like even that email that got exposed, remember?
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand what he was saying.
What
to
he was
tell you the
saying was,
truth.
I can't continue to play this double role.
Yeah.
Because he's talking me out of running. He went from go. He's still being invited to our meetings. He's going, I don't know, maybe a little late. While at the same time, he already
his Hillary debate. Yeah.
And
right.
Now here's what I think happened. I think what happened was, I think Ron, knowing me, concluded that I wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And that if he stayed with me, that he would lose his chance
Right.
to be part of this new administration, which he wanted. But I still think he thought I would have been better, but he knew that I
Right.
and would probably end up not doing it, and he'd be left hanging.
Uh-huh.
So instead of having the nerve to come to me and say, look, I want to be involved, I'm loyal to you, but I don't think you're going to do it. If you can tell me you're going to do it now, I'll stay.
Right.
But if you can't, I have to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah.
Which is what I would have done, you would have done to me.
Right.
He didn't have the courage to do it.
Right. Right.
Steve had the same opportunities, Mike had the similar opportunities, you know, but they didn't do that. They
Right.
stayed.
Right.
So I don't try to sell them on cutting him any slack, you know, I mean, because they stuck it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the context of this. How would I run? And so the discussions that revolved around what the strategy would be if I did run.
Mm-hmm.
You with me?
Yep.
And it was less at that point, was I going to announce at that time? It was more at that point, how was I going to run?
Right.
So what I was saying to these guys, looking back on it, what I was saying to them was, look guys, I don't know that I'm going to go, but let's move like you're going to go.
Right.
Put together the plan that, this is a really important point. Put together the plan that would allow me to win the nomination and be elected president, but what I'm not prepared to do, I'm not prepared to ask other people to commit
Right.
and then box themselves in. Now, I shouldn't have thought that way. I should have thought, fuck him, but I was worried. I didn't want, as a matter of honor, to have people do what Ron ended up doing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I didn't want to get them locked in and then deciding, and if I didn't go, then go,
Right.
God damn it, I could have,
Yeah.
I could have been a champ.
Yeah.
You know, I could have been a contender.
But the people you were talking to most closely, Steve and Mike,
Yeah, they
basically knew
No,
your
they knew,
situation.
and I think they, you know, they just didn't know. And by the way, you know, they also knew,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it was, and Steve, by the way, for all his gregariousness and hey, how you doing? Pretty smart guy, pretty insightful guy.
Yeah.
And I think he knew. But the context again throughout this whole period was, okay, my decision in my head was, what was I thinking in January?
Right. Right.
But so, we may be able to do this. But I don't want to get out too far that I put people out on a limb and then it gets sawed off and they're in trouble. But the guys who are willing, who don't have that as their objective, just being in administration, then let's go ahead and decide how we will run.
Right.
And all during this period, Mike's strongest argument for why we would run and win, and it turned out everything he wrote. Have you read some of the stuff? It's
He's talked to me about it.
all right,
Yeah.
well, we got to get the memos. Turned out to be
Right.
what it was, including her weaknesses and my strengths.
The care, but also the authenticity, the
Yeah.
looking for something real.
But he said, look, he kept coming back to this one thing. This race, no matter how you cut it, is going to be about the middle class. You are the single most authentic person in the United States of America, in American politics, that authentically can speak to the middle class. No one doubts that it's anything other than who you are. No one doubts that it's something that you have been focused on from the day you ran for office. And you are the embodiment of that. And the middle class gets it. All those folks out there, they look at you and say, yes, he knows my problem.
Right.
And so how did you deal with the middle class who were the ones still being hurt and not abandon Barack? Well, the way to do that was to say, look what we did now, man.
Right.
Let's understand. That's where I came up with the phrase spontaneously that I said, everything is landed on this man's desk except locusts.
Right.
And it's true.
And it is true. I mean,
is true.
what you guys walked into the first day.
It was astounding.
Yeah.
And look what we did. Now, granted, now we have to go back and from square one begin to build back the middle class. All we did was save you, basically, from depression.
Right.
Save you from being everything go.
Right.
Now, admittedly, what I wasn't focusing on then, I wasn't focusing on, while we were trying to save the economy, how rapidly the economy was changing.
Mm-hmm.
The digitalization issue, the fourth industrial revolution, what was going on. I wasn't focused on robots and artificial intelligence and digitalization and Moore's law. I mean, it was all about, and I really believed that, and I still believe it, that we could bring back the manufacturing in America. I didn't think that was lost. And I wasn't so big on globalization. I mean, I wasn't, I thought TPP, the reason I felt, first of all, I think we did not negotiate tough enough on TPP.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, what I thought was, I thought with TPP, it was more of a foreign policy document
Mm-hmm.
than it was as much a foreign policy document as an economic document. And that we could have been tougher in terms of protecting, you know, getting a better deal for American workers. And I was, for example, even in the foreign policy piece, as recently as the last 4 months we were in office, I was arguing when it comes to China and the South China Sea and air identification zones and the islands they're building in the South China Sea, I argued that we had much more leverage than China had in terms of the need for economic cooperation, and that we should be prepared to threaten economic cooperation. It's cheaper than war, and it hurts us, but it kills them.
Mm-hmm.
My argument, and one of the themes I want to get through here in this book as it relates to the foreign policy, domestic side of this, is that I think we always underestimate our power as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we always underestimate our power. And
You mean non-military power?
non-military power.
Right.
I think we always underestimate our leverage, including the backup possibility of military power. In other words, that's not the reason. If we didn't have the military power
Right.
to back it up, then all these other things would have less consequence. They would,
Right.
but for example, and I finally convinced, I thought I convinced Baragi, that in a situation where we were, if we decided that we were going to really come down on them on steel, which I thought we should have,
Right.
that it would have a dramatically negative impact on their economy. And if we were decided that we would come down on intellectual property, like for example, we nailed them. They literally stole not only the solar market from us, they stole the technology that this company had that allowed them to produce a more profitable, a more
Efficient, right?
efficient solar power.
Yeah.
I mean, they fucking stole it. And I thought we should have sanctioned them and and every time I'd meet with Xi, I don't want to get off on this, but every time I'd meet with them, my argument would be, look, man, you play by the rules. No problem. If you don't want to play by the rules, we impose, the consequence of not playing by the rules. We're going to compete. You want to compete? Fair. You want a different relationship? We got it. It can be new, but it's got to be by rules.
Right.
So if you don't, it's okay. If you don't want to play by the rules, we're going to enforce the sanctions. Well, there was always a reluctance.
Right. You couldn't put any
To do
teeth
that.
behind that.
Yeah, but there were a lot of teeth. But there was worry that we would get hurt more than, because what would happen is we'd say, we're going to come down on solar energy. They say, oh shit, you know what they're going to do? They're going to retaliate against business machines. And God damn it, then we're going to be in a war. Okay, well, so they lose the market in China for business machines. No problem. Let them go somewhere else. Fuck man, They need us. They need our market.
Right.
They need us. But we're never able to it's a little bit like how it's always harder to do the right thing because it always costs you something.
Right.
It costs something. And there's always the reluctance to you know, take the pain now, even though the pain is, you know, it's hard. Two things. It's hard to prove that if I don't do this, things are going to get worse.
Right.
You do it, things get worse, then they get better, but it's hard to prove that I had not done that, they would have not gotten better.
Right. Yeah, nobody's shown us the alternative.
No, I didn't have the old, so,
Yeah.
but that's leadership.
Right.
That's what leadership is.
But you also have to make the case.
Yeah, no, you make the case, but lots of times the case doesn't goes down. The case I made, you work at a widget factory, and you know I impose sanctions, and they stop buying widgets.
Right.
Well, you don't want to hear this bullshit.
Right.
You know, made the case. You know, but it's the only thing. I mean, that's leadership, and
Yeah.
that's what that was what Barack was always. And I guess every president. Maybe I was a president, I would have not had the nerve to do it too. But that's. It was always on the margins, but it was, you know, like I said, between you and me, I mean, Barack always got to the right spot, but a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's not all the time, but he got, anyway, I should take this call. Speak to, you know, during this period, we're reconstructing the period of February 2015, and there's on the schedule I'm in Munich, but after Angela Merkel, President's working lunch with, hang on a second. It's confusing me. Like this is February the 8th. Was this Munich? Yeah. It says, did I get home? Okay.
You flew back.
I flew back, so okay. And I think I went to the president's working lunch with Merkel. And the president's meeting with her on the 9th, and then the meeting with Cecilia Munoz at 3 to 4 on immigration policy. Okay. And then at breakfast, Marks to Able Act event. I can't remember what that was. And then I met with the Congressional Black Caucus. This was this the period where this congressman from South Carolina was trying to get me to, that we'd focus on underserved black areas in terms of the budget? I can't remember. We might ask Don Graves that question, okay? 2015, February the 10th, 2015. And then I met with the Venezuelan human rights activists, the women. There was this group of women that came to see me. And then, okay, do you remember what it was? Yeah, it was to get an agreement that we would focus on underserved areas and some formula. You might ask Don Graves what that was, okay? I think that's what I met with the caucus about. I don't know why. And then now I'm told by, I guess he checked with you, in order for me to get my, get all those presidential notes I had for lunch, the luncheon meetings, I have to go to. Okay, see if you can get me on the line while I have you now, okay? And stay.
something that goes to the presidential papers?
I don't think so. It was in between. I didn't want to turn them in.
Right, right. So that's the gray area. Yeah.